Thank you very, very much for joining us once again. CJ Rosenbaum from Amazon Sellers Lawyer. I am blessed to have Skip McGrath on today. We're going to be talking to you about intellectual property issues that sellers are facing, and not just on Amazon, but intellectual property issues on eBay also. Skip, if you don't mind, if you could introduce yourself, tell them what you do, where you do it in our space, how long you've been working with sellers, and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, this is Skip McGrath. I started selling on eBay in 1999, and in 2000 I started writing how-to books about eBay, how to sell on eBay, and they were very successful. In 2006, I also started selling on Amazon, so that was about 11 years ago, and I'm pretty successful on Amazon. We have scaled our business back a little bit just because my writing business keeps me so busy. I don't have as much time for eBay and Amazon as I used to, but we still sell on eBay and Amazon every day. And what I write about in my training books is just how we do things. There's no secrets or special tips or, underground things you're going to learn that other people tend to promise you, because all the knowledge is really out there. I mean, anything I learn, everyone else is going to know about it in a matter of weeks. In addition to my books and training courses, I publish the oldest and largest newsletter for eBay and Amazon sellers. It's called the eBay and Amazon Sellers News. It's free. It comes out twice a month, usually the first or second week of the month, and then the next to the last or the last week of the month. I have the first part of the newsletter covers news items typically, and then each issue has between 4 and 6 how-to articles where I cover various things about and topics that are of interest to eBay and Amazon sellers. Like we're going to talk about intellectual property today. That's one of the subjects I've written about. But I also talk about, how to private label, where to find wholesale sources. Each issue of my newsletter lists about over a dozen wholesale sources that I've researched. These are sources that will work with small eBay and Amazon sellers.
And these guys have perfect. Get McGrath's stamp of approval.
Yeah, they're not endorsed. What I do is I research them and I make sure they will work with small sellers. Every once in a while, I get one wrong. I mean, out of 12, I'm doing 12 twice a month. That's 24 per month. And every once in a while, I research a source, and maybe the information I got wasn't accurate or something. And but no, I can't possibly endorse them, because to do that, I would have to actually purchase from them and see their.
And your lawyer might advise you not to do that. But I got to tell you, one of the things. The reasons why I wanted to have you on, I wanted to talk to you, is because we constantly stress keeping your eye on the ball for the long haul, for the long term. And right. You have longevity. You've been online for a really long time, successfully selling, keeping the business intact, not for today or for tomorrow, but for next year and for 5 years down the road. I think sellers, they really have to have that mindset to be successful. There's like the overnight success is rare. It's like, making the NBA. But you have to keep your business streamlined and keep your eye on the long-term goals of providing an income, growing your business over time, identifying good products, developing your brand. Longevity, I think, is absolutely key. I mean, we have to make a living, not just today, but for the next 20 years. So I think that's absolutely awesome. All right, it's my understanding from the newsletter, and I think you said you had a 40,000 member list that receives your newsletter, that the IP complaints we're going to talk about today, at least some of them, are coming back to you from your readers.
Yes, I get a lot of email from my readers. My newsletter goes out. It actually has my email address in the reply. So if you just hit reply, people ask me questions all the time.
Well, what are you seeing? What are you seeing lately? We do breaking news. I haven't done it in a few weeks, and I'm going to start again. What are you seeing the latest or the most prolific issues that when it comes to intellectual property that are coming back to you from sellers?
Well, with intellectual property, the biggest thing I'm seeing is sellers complaining that their account has been suspended, or they got a warning of suspension because they were accused of selling a fake product. what actually happens is a lot of these sellers are people who are doing retail arbitrage. You know, they go to Target or Sears or Macy's and they buy Walmart. They buy something on sale. It's a brand name product. They put it up on Amazon or eBay, and the brand owner, the company, the manufacturer usually, sees it, and they see the product and they say, this person's not one of our regular sellers. They're not in our distribution chain. They're not signed up as an authorized reseller. So this product must be fake. And they complain to eBay or Amazon that the product's fake, when in reality it's not. And but the problem is both eBay and Amazon put the burden of proof on you, and it can take 4, 6, 8 weeks for you to, you know.
Well, let me interrupt you there, because
sure,
we see the same thing, and we're seeing an ever-growing series of complaints where the brands are hiring a lot of these nonsense companies who are just making complaint after anyone selling on the ACE, and they're sending a complaint with no rhyme or reason. They're not even checking to see whether you're selling genuine products or not. And I'll tell you, under U.S. law, you guys can buy and sell just about anything you want under the first sale doctrine. And you can show Amazon that it's genuine, and the complaints are generally baseless. And what we do is we reach out to the complainants and we show them your complaint is baseless, and we get them to withdraw their complaints.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a growing area. And if you look online, there are more and more companies that are marketing, saying that they can monitor listings and automatically send out complaints. And there's one big law firm called Voorhees that's sending out, these letters. We saw one letter that they sent that said, they represented Kohl's, and they said, because you bought at Kohl's, you can't resell it. They didn't represent the brands or anything. Mm-hmm. And it was just total BS. So if you're a seller and you receive one of these notices, you have to take it seriously and respond. But right, a lot of the claims are baseless. The vast majority of the IP complaints that are made against sellers are baseless if you're selling genuine products.
Correct. You know, I realize that. The other thing that happens, what a lot of my readers think that what they worry about is a competitor is doing this. It's actually someone else selling that is authorized to sell the brand, but they're a competitor, so they file a complaint because they don't want the competition. So I think that's another factor. But you're right about the baseless claims. I've found that you know, I've gotten emails from those companies before about products on my website and so on, and there's really nothing they can do about that. They just get my email. When I don't,
there's definitely a growth in seller versus seller complaints to try and knock out the competition. And the remedies aren't great. Okay. And I tried cases for close to 20 years, just back to back trials. And I always represent entrepreneurs, but I'm a trial lawyer at heart. And there is a huge increase in seller versus seller litigation, where if they are costing you enough money and financially it makes sense, you know, if you're in court, if you're filing a lawsuit, initially it's going to cost you several thousands of dollars. Just that first initial burst of time costs money. But as the case is ongoing, you're looking at somewhere usually around, I would say $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month in ongoing legal fees, whatever's going on. You know, some months a little higher, some months will be zero. But if you're losing, you know, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month because of another seller's baseless complaint, you do have remedies. You can take them to court. And I know it's not palatable, and I don't want anyone to rush into court because usually it's only good for the lawyers. But you're not impotent either. It's just got to be a business decision of whether you want to do it. So if it's seller versus seller, if you can identify them, and many times we can, you can do that, or just reaching out and touching them, letting them know, you know who they are. Here's a draft of a lawsuit, and if they don't stop the shenanigans and withdraw the complaint, you're going to proceed because it's costing you, X dollars per month. So there definitely are things that you can do. We've been also really interested, and our plan for 2018 is not only to expand into helping private label sellers more and more and more as Amazon pushes people into private label, but to expand into eBay. And could you talk a little bit about your experience with eBay and for IP complaints, their Vero system?
Well, yes, eBay has the Vero program. V as in Victor, ERO. It stands for Verified Rights Owner Program. The nice thing about eBay is they have a Vero page, and you can go to that page and you can look up all the companies that have, not every company that might make a Vero complaint has set up a page, but most of the companies have. So it's like you have a little place to look first and see what their policies are, because they state their intellectual property policies on there. I know one of the things that people get in trouble with, they may have, even when they have a legitimate product that they bought legitimately. And by the way, in a minute, when I finish this, I want to ask a question about that first sale doctrine. I'd like to talk about that a bit more. But what happens is they'll use a photo off of the manufacturer's website in their eBay listing or their Amazon listing, and they get an intellectual property complaint because that photograph is copyrighted, and the name of the product might be trademarked or registered. And if that's the case, and if you put the name of the brand or the product in your listing and you don't put that little R symbol with a circle around it that shows it's registered, then they can complain about that, and they will.
It even applies if the sellers are putting things in the back end. Okay, using the words and it's coming up, you got to be careful there as well. And also picture. I know a lot of sellers will use a picture, an image owned by somebody else, and then alter electronically. Don't do it. Take your own photographs. Either you can do it yourself, or there are a lot of services that can take really great photos for you. But don't use somebody else's picture, and certainly don't do the electronic altering. It doesn't work, at least from our perspective.
Right. What I do is I just take a picture. I put an item on the table in window light. I take a nice picture of it, but it's got the table as a background. There's a company I use called RetailStudioEffect.com. And there's several other companies that do this, but I happen to like them. But I send my photo to them, and they take it and make it a professional looking Amazon compliant or eBay compliant photograph. It comes back to me with an all white background. Also, when I create, if I create bundles or multi-packs of something, I could put, like, I sell, one of the sales I just made this morning, you're going to laugh at this, I sell pumpkin seed oil. And it's a big seller. I don't know who uses pumpkin seed oil and what they use it for, but I sell a ton of it. I sell it in a 2-pack. So, I just put 2 cans together on the table. I took a picture of it, and then I sent it off to Retail Studio Effect, and they sent me back a professional looking photograph of the 2 cans. And, that's what I do. And you can do the same thing. I mean, now Amazon, the other thing, remember, Amazon's image standards is they do not want you to put up a photograph of the product in the box. And if you do, that can also cause you IP issues, because a lot of times the box, the artwork on the box is copyrighted, or there's a trademark, or, the name on the box is trademarked and it might not show up in the photograph. So it's best to take the product out of the box, set it on a table, photograph it, and, send it off to one of these services. Now, there's another thing you can do, which is if you go on Amazon and put light tent, LIGHTTENT, 2 words, into the search box, there's about 50 companies selling these photographic light tents, which are, you just put an object in them and you shoot it, and it gives you the Amazon compliant white background, and you don't have any distractions or anything, or any background showing that, so you end up with a pretty good photograph. If you don't want to spend the money on one of these services to clean up your photos, then try that. There's a little learning curve and takes some practice, but that's one way to do it. And
they come with good lighting, so you're not getting shadows. They really are really helpful. Also, let's take a step back, okay? So if you're watching this, we also advocate doing research before you dump a lot of money into a product. Check the forums, Google, check the research, see if anyone's filing lawsuits. See if that brand is filing baseless complaints. If you're not going to make a ton of money, there are a lot of products you just may want to avoid. Also, you want to make sure you're not buying products that are brand gated or having any other problems. We do a lot of plans of action, have nothing to do with the law. If you can avoid needing a plan of action, if you can avoid a suspension, it's a really, really good thing. But now, if you're going to get on eBay, you're expanding there, check the Vero page and see what's been filed. The company's created a listing. what the rules are before you dump a lot of money into it, because you want to be able to sell consistently without interruption and without needing someone to help you get your account back.
Right.
Skip, I want to ask you, we have been seeing over the last few weeks that when an IP complaint is made, the sellers, our clients, are now receiving more information than ever from Amazon. You know, it used to be a really generic email that just gave you, there has been a complaint and here's the email address for you to contact to try and resolve it. You know, but now we're getting more information. We're actually getting the registration numbers, getting a little bit more detail. Have you seen that, or have any of your readers let you know that there's been a change?
No, I haven't had anything from my readers, and I haven't had an IP complaint in probably, well, the last one I had was about a year ago, and it turned out I was guilty. I found a product in China that was trademarked by a company in Israel, and you know, the Chinese told me it wasn't trademarked or registered because what they meant was it wasn't registered in China. So that's a danger you have to look out for. You might find a great product on Alibaba or AliExpress or Global Sources or one of those places. Only, you know, you buy it and decide to private label it, and then it turns out that the product design or the name was trademarked by some other company. So it does pay to go to uspto.gov and do a search on the name, or and you got it. I don't know. Maybe you can give some advice on this, but doing searches. But besides the name of the product or the, you know, I think you have to put in a lot of terms in that search engine.
Well, it's like the old Boolean. I mean, it's right out of 1996, the USPTO. Okay. Mm-hmm. But we recommend sellers do it themselves, put in the search terms, play with it for a while and see what they can come up with. Right. If you're not finding anything, or you're concerned, or you're uncomfortable, you know, we do that. We can give a report. We don't charge a lot of money for it. And we can let you know whether, one, the product seems entirely safe. Number two, the product looks like it's going to be an absolute nightmare for you. Stay away unless the upside is absolutely tremendous, or somewhere in between. But right. USPTO.gov, it's simple to use. For people my vintage, it's really second nature because it's such an old website. But it's clearly easy to do it yourself. So try it yourself. If you can't, give us a call. We'll try and walk you through it, or we can do it for you. We are also seeing an increase in number of patent complaints. Okay, now listen, let me just take a step back, okay? For everyone listening to this, if you're selling a genuine product, if you're doing retail arbitrage, if you're getting it from the same factory, maybe the same raw materials, by the same machines, if it's gray market, chances are you are not violating anybody's IP rights, and it doesn't matter whether you get one complaint or a dozen. It doesn't mean you're violating anything. It's certainly a problem on Amazon specifically because the Vero system is a lot more of a robust system, has a lot greater checks and balance system than Amazon. Amazon's system it's reviewed by this team called the MPA team, and as far as I'm aware, and I've done more cross-examination of Amazon's witnesses than probably anybody on the planet. Okay. I can't identify any legal training that they have. And they're receiving these complaints. I mean, as far as I can tell, it's like zero. Okay. But you're not really doing anything wrong, which means you should be able to recover and get your listing back if you have a problem, you know, if you decide to go into it. We got a question from somebody out there. Let me read it. Ivy says, I'm doing RA. She got hit with an IP complaint. She did not sell anything and she took the listing down. Seller support is not being real helpful to her. Okay. Is there any other remedy that we can suggest to her? All right, Ivy, first, what type of IP complaint? Is it copyright? Is it patent? Is it trademark? Okay. So give us that information and then it's easy to respond. And I'll just talk kind of generically about it. When you have any type of IP complaint on Amazon, they want you to go to whoever made the complaint and try and get it withdrawn. We can almost always get those withdrawn because they're almost always baseless. If they refuse to withdraw it or they're silent, then you go to Amazon with your legal opinion letter and you try and get them to ignore the IP complaint. Skip, what are your thoughts on this while we're waiting for Ivy to let us know, what the grounds of the complaint are?
Well, it's interesting. My complaint that I referred to earlier, where the product was trademarked, they gave me the name of the complainant, and I emailed them no less than 5 times, and they never answered. But I didn't push it beyond that, because in my research showed they actually did own the trademark and had registered the product, both the name and the design. So, and that was something had I done more work up front, I probably could have discovered. But
you weren't doing anything wrong. If it was a genuine product, Ivy, I see it was a trademark complaint. So we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. Unless you're taking the Nike swoosh mark, right, and you're putting it on your own hat, you're not violating their trademark. If it's a genuine Nike product and you buy it off the back of a truck, or you buy it from Modell's or from Dick's Sporting Goods or from wherever, and it's genuine, you're not violating their trademark. It's all nonsense. It's a baseless complaint.
Well, in my case, let me interrupt you. In my case, I ordered the product from China, and it essentially was a copy of their product, and that's what they were complaining about, because they also I used the name in my listing, the name of the product that they had copyrighted or trademarked, I'm not sure which, but they had trademarked their design, the product, the actual product design. And which I didn't know you could do. I knew you could trademark logos and things like that, but I didn't know that the actual shape and style of the product could be trademarked. So maybe you could talk to that. Is that correct, or is that?
Trademarks pertain to how you write something and to words. When you're talking about the shape and the packaging and the color and the texture, that more goes to trade dress or a design patent.
Okay.
Now, Ivy, yours is a trademark issue. If your product's genuine, you're not violating anybody's rights at all. It's a nonsense complaint as long as it's here in the U.S. Okay, we have what's called the first sale doctrine. Skip, when it comes to the product that you obtained in China, if it was from a different factory, okay, then it probably was counterfeit. Okay,
yeah, it was a counterfeit product. That was the problem, and like I say, had I done more research up front, I probably could have determined that. But I got excited when I saw the product. I knew it would be. I did some product research and knew it would be a good seller, and it was. I got the product in, and I was selling it for 6 months before this complaint hit.
You see, sometimes if you look back and you're doing a business analysis, risk versus reward, if you look back at the numbers for those 6 months, it may have been worthwhile or it may not have been worthwhile. Yeah. That's really a business decision. And people call me up, should I sell this, right? And let's take fidget spinners, for example, right? Sure. Someone had the intellectual property rights to the fidget spinners, but there were probably thousands of sellers who made extremely large amounts of money selling it until they popped up and closed down the sales. So from a business perspective, selling fidget spinners was a really good business idea if you got in early. Right. The last couple of weeks, it was pretty bad. Right. And you have to kind of figure out what's good for you. All right. Nick asks the question, if the patent is in the United States and not the European Union, is it safe to ignore selling it in the EU? Okay. In at least in the UK, I'm not sure about the rest here, but again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a barrister, I'm not a solicitor. It's kind of on my bucket list to get licensed there, but I'm not licensed there yet. In the United States, we have the first sale doctrine where you don't need anybody's permission at all to sell a product. It's different in the UK where authorization to sell is part of their IP rights. So I'd be a little bit careful. I'd do a search in the EU and see who owns the rights and then see if they're actively protecting it or not before you start selling it. So Nick, you might be good to sell. It might be problematic, or it might be one of those decisions where you could have a problem, but there's enough money to be made that it's worthwhile to you. Skip, what are your thoughts on
I guess my question would be, having heard that, what you said, and I kind of tend to agree with everything leading up to that about, looking at the risk versus reward and getting in early. And, in my case, I made pretty good money on these devices. It was a kitchen product, but not enough to maybe pursue it beyond that and keep going on. The legal fees for me to fight it would have been significant, and I didn't make that much money on it. So it was, in this particular case, it was easier for me to just drop the product, because I had probably made my investment back anyway, so I was not really out any money. My profits covered my costs and the fees and the shipping and stuff like that. Just on the ones I sold, I ordered 500 of them, and I sold about 300 before this happened. And I made enough money on that 300 to cover the cost of the whole 500. So in my case, it wasn't that hard to let it go. But I guess my question would be, how do you know that someone is protecting their product? You said, do the research to see if they're actively protecting their product and their brand. How do you determine that? What are you looking for?
Well, first you check the seller forums that are out there, and even check on Facebook. You just even Google the brand and Amazon and intellectual property rights, or use the word rights owner. And you really just need to do individual research to see, are other sellers having problems with this brand? And the ones that are really active, you're going to see it. You'll see it in the forums. Amazon sellers, why they're very kind of private about what they're selling before there's a problem, are very active once they do have a problem.
Okay.
So you could also do searches in the courts to see if they're actually filing complaints at all and actually pursuing any litigation. But the best thing is, listen, Google is tremendous and the forums are tremendous.
Right. So
just spending a couple hours before you buy a container full of widgets really serves sellers well. All right, we got a question from Talia. Talia received a complaint because they're not authorized and they're not giving the same warranty as the manufacturer. Okay. Are you seeing an increase from your readers about complaints regarding authorized seller versus not being authorized?
Yes, I am hearing that. I've heard sellers that have, in fact, I received them myself. This is interesting. I have a brand I've been selling for maybe the last 9 years where I am an authorized reseller, but because my user ID on Amazon is different than the name I buy under, when they saw that, they thought I was not. They emailed me and said, you need to stop selling our product because they had two complaints. One was I was breaking the MAP price, the MAP price, the minimum advertised price. And the other complaint was I was not an authorized reseller. Well, I sent them back my real company name and the name of the rep I deal with and so on. So I was able to clear that up with 2 or 3 emails. But yeah, I've gotten emails, and I've had readers email me that say, they've gotten complaints that they're not an authorized reseller, and they're demanding that they sell the product, or they're going to take action. And they tend to be threatening sounding kind of emails, threatening in a sense of legal action, not physical. But I've heard of that. And so, what's your response to that? What's the best way to handle that? Well, first, now this brings me to my question I said I had about the first sale doctrine. My understanding of the first sale doctrine is, if I go into, say, Target and I buy a Lego toy, just as an example, and I put that on eBay or Amazon, if I call it new, it's not really new because it's been purchased and taken out of the store. So technically it's no longer new. What I usually do, and I find this resolves most complaints for me, I don't get complaints because I'll sell it as used. And calling something used, even though, and in the description I'll say, look, this is brand new, still in the box, never used, but because it was purchased once before, I have to sell it as used. And I put my price just a tiny bit below the MSRP, and I usually get the sale. And that's how I've gotten around the problem. What's your advice on that? Or does first sale mean you can sell something that's new?
First sale doctrine says that in America, you can buy and sell anything you want, wherever you want, as long as what the consumer is getting is not materially different from what the store or an authorized seller would deliver. Okay. So what does it boil down to? A lot of times it boils down to the warranty. Okay. And if the warranty says money back guarantee, right, you're not violating anything because anybody can give back money. It's generic. If it says satisfaction guarantee, you're not violating anything. So a lot of times it boils down to that. So that box of Legos that you bought, there's no reason you could not have sold that as brand new at a yard sale or on Amazon or eBay or any place else. Now, is it a bit safer to list it as used and then put the description? It certainly is, okay? Because you're kind of giving yourself a nice layer of protection, but that, my understanding from sellers, that's also going to lower the number of sales. So it does give you protection, but that item, you could have listed as new every day of the week and not violated anybody's IP rights. Now, map pricing was addressed by the United States Supreme Court in 2007, okay? I mean, we're talking 11 years ago. And what the United States Supreme Court said is that they're not going to enforce map price. The case is called Legion, Leegin, had to do with leather goods, that they're not going to enforce map pricing against anybody unless you signed on to that agreement.
Right.
You signed the agreement that says we will not advertise any price less than $19.99. You're stuck to it. Or if the product is something that the courts think they should protect, like a life-saving device or a medication or something that just, we have to protect it so that development of new products goes on. But most products are not that, you know. Most products are not something that really are life-saving or life-altering where the government has to get involved. So map pricing is for the most part dead unless you signed on to that agreement. And the first sale doctrine says you can buy and sell basically whatever you want, which is why most of the complaints are baseless. Okay. So that's really the difference. You don't need anyone's authorization. You don't need a distribution agreement. You don't need to comply with map pricing unless you sign the agreement. And most people and most sellers have not. And you're not violating anything at all. But I got to tell you, this also leads into a topic that I had on my short list here of what I wanted to talk about is Amazon's ever increasing focus on brands. You know, we got, consumers are like, the pinnacle, and that was it. But now you got consumers and brands. The sellers, it doesn't really seem like Amazon really cares all that much about the sellers. But we've seen even further increase the focus on brands and against retail arbitrage. Not that there's still a lot of money to be made doing retail arbitrage. There is, but we're seeing a huge push. It's been increasing over the last 2 years, maybe a little bit longer, towards people going into private label goods. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes. In fact, I've done that myself and I teach it. That's one of the topics that I've created training materials on. I've written several newsletter articles about that. And, I think going private label, frankly, I think it's the answer to all these problems we're discussing.
Yeah, what's your website? Let me put on the screen for the reader. For the listeners.
Okay, just my name, Skip McGrath, SKIPMCGRATH.com. So,
all right, I'm sorry, keep going. Tell us about the focus on private label, because I used to say it's the wave of the future, but it's the wave of the now.
Yeah, it is. It is now. I'm not sure about the future. You never know. But one of the things I've seen both eBay and Amazon doing, they're actually doing two things. What they're putting policies in place to discourage retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, and they're also doing things to discourage drop shipping. Drop shipping used to be the model that everybody loved because you didn't need a ton of cash. You could start selling with basically no cash at all. But both eBay and Amazon are doing things to discourage that. Amazon and eBay both have this rule about where you have to enter tracking within 24 hours of a sale on 90% of your products. I actually think on Amazon it's 95%. The problem is most drop shippers, I have one drop shipper I still deal with because they generate a tracking number the same day that I send them an order, and I can meet the 24-hour target. But all the other drop shippers I dealt with, I had to drop because I would lose on eBay, I would lose my top rated seller status, and on Amazon, after a while, when you violate that rule consistently, it hurts your account metrics, and it's hard to get the buy box when you have poor account metrics. So that's another reason why now the big change with private label is Amazon now, it used to be you could register your private label brand, but now Amazon requires that you trademark the brand so that you can register it. And let me interrupt you for a second, okay? As you sellers get more and more into private label, if you're already doing it,
file for your trademark. Same site, uspto.gov. Download the form, fill it out, do the name at least, and file. You can do it yourself. It's really an easy form to fill out. Okay, the filing fees are negligible. File for your mark. We've seen, 1.0 is shutting down. It's going the way of the dinosaurs, and 2.0, you got to have the mark. So you got to file now. The approval of the marks is taking a little bit longer. We're seeing that they're not even getting assigned for like 3 months. You're looking at like 6 to 9 months in order to get the approval. So starting yesterday, okay, as soon as you're done listening to this webinar, as soon as you're done asking questions of me and Skip, go to uspto.gov, download the form, and file for your mark.
Okay. One thing about that, I have some friends I'm actually having dinner with tonight, and they might even be watching this webinar. They're folks, they're big Amazon sellers, and they live here in the same town as I do. And I got an email from them recently. They filed a trademark application. They got a note back that there was something wrong. I don't think their mark was used by someone else. I don't think that was the reason. They weren't specific about what the note was, but the note from USPTO just said, your application doesn't meet our standards or something like that. And it's the 6 month waiting period starts all over again for them. So that's why I'm thinking, would it be better for people to use someone like yourself or one of these online services like, mycorporation.com or LegalZoom.com or one of those guys, because they have a group that looks over your application. In other words, they know how to do it in such a way that you won't make and I'm sure it's the same in your office, you won't make the mistakes. Plus, you probably do a better job, a more thorough job with the search than, one of us would on our own. What's your feeling on that?
I got kind of some skin in the game on that question here.
Sure.
Listen, I advocate for people to try and handle things themselves. Also, the newer ones starting up, doing retail arbitrage, every dollar counts. Do we do it, quite often? Yes. Can my team in the next room do it quickly? And, we don't really make a whole bunch of mistakes on it? Absolutely. But it's also something that people can do it yourself. So I don't want to discourage anybody from doing it themselves. If you want to call us, we can do it for you. LegalZoom and the other services, I'm not a big fan of, and it's not because they are our competitors. They're really not. They're not focused on Amazon. I just think they're unnecessary.
Okay.
Yeah, there's plenty of people out there who can help you with the trademark application for free, or your local lawyer can do it, or we can do it for you. But I'm not a big fan of LegalZoom or the other online people. I believe you need to know who you're dealing with. Okay. That's why, when it comes to your basic plan of action, if you hire us to do a plan of action for you, it's being right here in beautiful downtown Long Beach, New York, in our conference rooms and in our teams of writers. It's not being farmed out to the Philippines. It's not being farmed out to anybody else. As far as I'm aware, we're the only company, law firm or not, that actually has a team of people working together on plans of action. And I think as a seller, your livelihood depends upon it. You need to know who's doing the work. Right. So I'm not a big fan of anybody who is outsourcing anything to anywhere. I don't think it's fair to the clients who think they're getting, such and such out of Texas, or, Mr. So-and-so out of Boston, and they're actually farming it out elsewhere. So I'm not a big fan of that.
Okay. By the way, let me just give you a short plug to all the people out there watching this. I've had an occasion to get some advice from CJ before. It's been excellent. These guys do a great job, and they are specialists in Amazon. So, I don't know, CJ, you could probably help people with eBay issues too, couldn't you? Especially in the intellectual property type.
You're kind of messing up our planned launch.
Okay.
We have the intellectual property laws are the same, whether it's, it's Amazon, it's eBay, it's Etsy, it's Wish, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Newegg, Walmart, Jet. The U.S. IP laws are exactly the same. We have started accepting clients who are having eBay problems, both intellectual property issues and non-intellectual property issues. And we plan on launching, I'm hoping to be really ready to go around June 1st. But we try to first increase our capacity and be able to do a good job before we increase the marketing angle. sometimes we get overwhelmed. We're humans just like everybody else. But we try and do a 2 to 3 day turnaround on just about everything that we do. But yeah, we are taking on eBay clients now. We let them know that we are more experienced than Amazon. But by June 1st, I hope to really have an entire team doing nothing but eBay claims.
That's great. Good to hear.
As an attorney, I can't reveal, that we helped you out. And I can't reveal any of the other people out there or the other vendors and people that we provided legal counsel to, or even drafted a plan of action. Everything is confidential, which you also get by using us. I don't want this to be such a huge plug for my law firm, but I do appreciate you revealing it because we've helped a lot of the thought leaders out there. And we can't reveal it. Everything is confidential. Your listings are private. Your great ideas are private when you hire a law firm. If you go anyplace else, if you go to somebody in Texas who's also a seller, I don't know if they're going to start selling your widgets or reveal that information. We can't and we don't. We actually have a license to protect. All right, Nick Green. I'm sorry, Nick. I'm sorry if Nick asked a question. If the rights are registered in the U.S. but not in the European Union, does he have something to be concerned about? The answer is yes, you do. The United States and the UK, and I believe most of the European Union, are first to use venues, meaning if you're selling a product first, if you created it first, you own the rights to it. That's different from China, for example, which is all about registration. Like, for example, Nike had a problem and Air Jordan. Michael Jordan had a problem. Range Rover had a problem. President Trump had a problem because other businesses registered their names and their marks in China first. And China's just a first to file. It doesn't matter who used it first. Right. So I would suspect if you have an issue in the U.S., Nick, you're also going to have an issue in Europe. And it may be more so because they don't have the first sale doctrine there. It doesn't exist. All right. We're getting to the point where we got to start wrapping it up. We covered the baseless complaints against real products. We talked about eBay and their system. We talked a little bit about towards the shift towards private label. Skip, any last subject you want to get into before we wrap it up?
Back to private label. What can we as sellers do when someone starts poaching your private label brand? For example, now there's two ways to do private label. They're both legal. I call one official and the other one unofficial. Unofficial way is when you just make up a brand name and you put it on a product. Now, for example, I buy a lot of generic fashion jewelry, and the companies that sell this to me don't mind if I put my own brand name on it. So I just made up a brand name out of thin air. And but the downside of that is you can't defend it because it's not registered or trademarked or protected in any way. But the official way, the other way, of course, is to apply for a trademark and register it. And when you do that, then if someone starts poaching you or camping out on your listings or selling your brand, you can do something about it. But I often find sellers just trying to camp on my list and sell the same thing. They're usually in China. And they're undercutting me because they can buy the product super cheap in China, and they ship for China with that postal system the government set up, which gives them practically free air shipping.
I just got back from Hong Kong, and I spoke at it's a great event. You mentioned it earlier. Global Sources is absolutely fantastic. It's really a great way for private label sellers to learn how to source and have the vendors right there at the Hong Kong airport. It's the speakers that go there at the Amazon Summit and the other events. They have a special fashion sourcing show there that's just fantastic. Megla, who runs it, is just a fantastic business person. She's just a great person all around. But it's absolutely terrific. I kind of lost my train of thought there. But going there to source is good, adding your brands there. But we're talking about hijackers. You need to add something to your product. If you're private labeling unofficially or what you call officially, you have to make sure that one, the customers are not receiving the same thing from somebody else who's hijacking your listing. And number two, even if you don't file the trademark or the copyright, if you have what's called trade dress, if you could somehow alter the product to make it really unique, or the packaging very unique, or an add-on of copyright material or a license, or give them a better warranty that actually gives you some rights, you can often build something in or add something onto that product to protect yourself. Others, it's more difficult, but a lot of products, when we do an analysis of it, we can tell you, listen, add this to it, package it this way, change the warranty, copyright some material, draft some verbiage, and put it inside, a license to use a certain portion of your website, or a right to receive a newsletter, something that somebody else can't deliver, because you can protect those things. Let me answer a question. We got a question from Nathan. Nathan wants to know, if a rights owner is not responding to his emails, what are his best next steps? Okay. Now, first,
that's a great question.
It happens all the time. As a law firm, we almost always get responses. You know, it's not right, but I think it's reality. Lawyers and brand managers often will blow off individual sellers, but they will respond to a law firm. But if they don't respond or they refuse, then you can write a plan of action identifying to Amazon why, one, you're not violating any rights, and then show Amazon how they're not responding. And that works. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it certainly does work. And it also helps if you have a legal opinion letter to show, you know, you're not violating their patent, you're not violating their trademark, you didn't violate their copyright, and there's no significant trade dress. You know, so you can still succeed in getting that listing back, or if your account went down, getting your account back, even if the alleged rights owner doesn't respond to you at all.
That's interesting. You know, in my case, when this person poached, I had what you said, the trade dress. I had a product box that I designed. It had my own images and verbiage and everything on it, and I copyrighted that. And the seller, but what I did was I had to order one of the products from the seller. It was an identical product, but it arrived in a plain cardboard box, where mine were shipped in my designed retail product box. And when I showed Amazon the two photographs, they shut down the other listing. It took about 4 weeks. And during that 4 weeks time, I lost sales because that guy was really underselling me. And they were winning the buy box on price. But eventually Amazon did shut them down. So you are correct about that. And one of the things I do that I actually tell my readers about, I had this in my newsletter recently. You don't need to spend the money to design a fancy retail box. If you're polybagging your product, you can just have a card. And that's what I do, is I have these cards printed. I design them in Microsoft Word. I have them printed at my local office printer place. It costs me about $7 or $8 for 500 cards. And I just put one card in each product, and that has my brand name, my address, has some bullet points about the product. And that's something when the other seller delivers, it doesn't have that. So you can show that to Amazon, that the other seller is delivering something that's not identical to your listing. And generally when you do that, I mean, like I said, it does take a while. It can take 4 to 5 weeks, but Amazon will shut those other people down. They'll cancel their.
You brought up something before. I realized when I was going off on that tangent when I started talking about global sources. There was a speaker at the Global Sources Summit in Hong Kong last week who demonstrated the deal that United States Postal Service has with the Postal Service in China, where there are actually rates that it's cheaper to ship from like Shenzhen, China, right, into like, Michigan, for example, than it might be for someone to ship domestically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a real ripoff.
Access to the factories, access to the goods, and we're subsidizing it. And plus, I got to tell you that the Chinese government is subsidizing business like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yeah.
They are really, and I'm not saying in a bad way. I mean, the Chinese are super business people. They're super focused, and they're not wasting their time with Stormy Daniels nonsense. Okay,
exactly.
they are helping business people. They they cover, my understanding is they will reimburse for 1/2 of the cost of filing for IP rights. Mm-hmm. They build these phenomenal e-commerce business parks. They encourage businesses financially, and they are just up and coming and just doing great. And the days of, there's a book called like Cheap China. It doesn't exist anymore. I mean, they are just building high quality products. And the business people that, you know, we represent people in China, they are like the Rockefellers and the Carnegie Mellons, you know, that we had decades ago. So, you know, we got to up our game. If we want to compete, you need to compete against the Chinese. You need to up your game. So I think that's absolutely vital. Okay. I want to talk a bit also about upcoming events that are coming up here. In just a couple more weeks, Retail Global, if you are entering the market in Australia, okay, one, it is an absolutely enormous country. I mean, the landmass is comparable to the United States. It's a huge country. It's not as populated as the United States, but it's still absolutely enormous. And it's English speaking. Okay. They sound a little bit nicer than I generally sound with my New York accent. Yeah. But if you are considering or you are in Australia, Retail Global in Gold Coast, Australia is a must-attend event. There are 7 different tracks. You're going to walk in and out you're going to walk out with tremendous amounts of knowledge for that particular market. So if you're thinking about going into Australia, if you are in Australia selling, you really should go to Retail Global. It's in May. I think it's the 23rd to the 26th, give or take. I'm going to be there. I'm really looking forward to it. It's my first trip to Australia. I'm going to be doing some scuba diving. I got my certificate last week. And just an incredible event. And for people who are hesitant to go internationally because of the language barriers, they're English speaking. So a lot of the barriers don't exist.
Well, the other thing about Australia, Amazon just announced they're going to set up FBA in Australia finally.
That's right.
Doing that for a while, but they've just created 2 or 3 FBA warehouses.
And what we've also seen is Amazon is they're continuing improving the platform. Okay, you know, we deal with a lot of the negative aspects of working on Amazon, but you always have to recognize the tremendous opportunity they've provided to millions and millions of entrepreneurs. So when they built out in India, they changed certain things, and we expect them to like keep continuing to improve in Australia because it gives them almost like a blank slate on how to operate the platform. All right, Skip. Again, I had your website up. Is there anything you'd like to sell? Then I'm going to do a couple of plugs, not for me, but for a couple of other things. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, the main thing about my website is people should go to it, skipmcgrath.com, and subscribe to the free newsletter. First of all, it's free. Secondly, I never spam you. I don't rent or sell your name. I promise that in writing right on the website, and I've always followed that. I've never ever sold, or rented a reader or a subscriber's name. One of the things I find is people subscribe to my newsletter after a while, after they've read 3 or 4 issues, they tend to start buying my products. So that's why I want you to subscribe. But, it's also, even if you never buy a product, there's a ton of free information, not only in the newsletter, and I have all the archives of the newsletters back for the last 3 years on the website. But also I have a lot of free articles, free pages, like I have 20 tips for selling on Amazon, 70 tips for selling on eBay, things like that are up there that you can read, and they're all totally free. My theory has always been, if I give away really good information for free, then people will not hesitate to pay for the information that I sell, because they figure, wow, if his free stuff is this good, his paid stuff must be really good. And I try to do that. I try to make that case and follow through. And, fortunately over the years, I've developed a good reputation, and, because I follow through. The other thing I want to let people know is I actually answer, if you email me or telephone me, and my email address and telephone address are on the website, I actually answer my phone, I answer people's emails, and, it might take a while because some days I get hundreds of emails. It might take me a day or 2 to get back to you, but I will get back to you, I promise. So that's it.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to put something up to my screen, and if you watch any of these webinars, I do this every time, okay? Because we don't not only sell stuff, we don't sell anything, but you guys don't just sell on Amazon, you buy on Amazon, okay?
Right.
All the warts and the problems, you still order that stuff, and those boxes show up at your office and at your home. If you're buying, you got to use Smile at Amazon Smile program, okay? What is it? It's a program at Amazon where you can pick a charity, and every time you purchase something, they're going to give a small fraction of the money to a charity. This is the charity that I ask you and I beg you to use, the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. A real close buddy of mine, a fraternity brother of mine, and his wife, Cindy, they lost their son to cancer. It was god awful, and they have turned tragedy into triumph. They created this great foundation, and they raise money solely to find cures for pediatric cancers. And you wouldn't believe how small a percentage of the money that our government puts into it when you think about the awful emotional loss and also the economics of it. I mean, you lose entire lifespans of productivity.
Sure.
So it costs you nothing. It costs you absolutely nothing. If you're shopping on Amazon, do Amazon Smiles, choose the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. If you're anywhere in the Northeast, they have this thing called the Mess Fest in the summer, where it's all about having like crazy fun and recognizing the joys of childhood. There are tents set up for food fights. There's this giant pool set up for having like just a big pile of mud to play in. I mean, it's just fantastic. And Lou and Cindy, you guys are absolutely remarkable. So Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Skip, thank you very much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Nathan and Ivy and Nick, I see your thanks and you're welcome. If anyone has questions, email it to me. Email is cj@amazonsellerslawyer.com. cj@amazonsellerslawyer.com. Sellers is plural. Lawyer is singular. Also, with Skip and with my office, you can actually speak to somebody. Okay? Right. We are not Amazon. We help sellers. You can actually talk to somebody. So anyway, thank you very much. And I'll be on again really soon, I hope.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Good conference.